Greetings, my friends, and welcome back to the Home Slice. Today we have the last first stage episode of our most current full-size folder EDC tournament, and I'm really excited about the contenders today. Today we have a Kizer Genie in Richlite. I wanted to try this Richlite material. It seems like lots of people are using it, and I've always been intrigued by the Kizer Genie, mostly because I really like slim, slender knives, and I really like knives that are full, just about 3.5 inches long and have a good, useful amount of edge. I also love reverse tantos, so the design on this Kizer Genie was just really speaking to me. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I did get it at the tail end of my realizing that I don't always love 154 cm and the sharpening characteristics of it. I don't always find that as a steel it really excels with sharpening. If you know a good way to sharpen 154 cm, you can drop me a comment if you want and help me out. But I have had some trouble getting these to get really keen, nice edges at times. Oftentimes I'm sharpening from factory, so we could have some overheating issues there and they could clear up, but I haven't had a lot of issues from many of the other steels in the tournaments, so it's an interesting phenomenon. Anyway, the Kizer Genie is a beautiful streamlined design with a fun cutout for many interesting deployment options, and against it is another knife that's very similar in those terms, which is the GiantMouse Ace Reo. GiantMouse Ace Reo comes to us in CPM MagnaCut steel. I believe it is made by Lion Steel in Maniago, Italy, and it's just a beautiful, almost symmetrical spear point, full flat ground, thin, slicey, long, thin, elegant beast of a knife. The detent is crisp. It just crackles when you launch that thing out of there in the best way. Shunk. And I've got this one in a diamond machined denim micarta. So very excited to try out this. I do like Jens Anso and Jesper Voxnes and their sort of smooth utilitarian design aesthetic really does speak to me. I love how thin this thing comes in, and it's a big knife that feels small in your pocket, and that's something that I really have a value for. So these two are going to battle it out for my fun, flicky, kind of fancy knife slot in this tournament, and we'll see whether I prefer the robust tip and the Richlite handle and the slightly slimmer and slightly smaller setup of the Kizer Genie, or whether the MagnaCut really speaks to me and the design really speaks to me on this GiantMouse Ace Reo. I'll give you the stats on these knives here. And then we'll do some fun artistic shots of the knives. And then I'll be back after 2 weeks of use to give you guys a recap and a winner.
Winsome whistling wind, let me listen in. I chased you through these trees and tasted your tender on the tip of my tongue, but we've only begun. I tracked your trail to these winsome finally found and understood. Oh, you've been filling my lungs early in the morning, safety is becoming my own. Your love is never fleeing, same in every season. Not
All right, back from a very interesting 2 weeks of use with the GiantMouse Ace Reo and the Kizer Genie in Richlite. So I really love, this would be really interesting because I really love the like slim form factor of these knives. I really enjoy a cutout rather than a thumb stud for like sharpening purposes. I really like the handle material on this Kizer Genie, and just the overall layout is really nice, and I really like MagnaCut steel. So let's start with the Kizer Genie. From the first moment of carrying, I really enjoy the detail lines on this knife. I really enjoy the sweep, and it's comfortable in the hand. It's kind of round. I like a rounded handle. I like a thin handle personally because of how small they carry, but then how nice they feel if they're nice and rounded. I really enjoy the reverse tanto, and I really like the sweep of the edge. The edge is a really, really nice shape. So, well, those are the good parts, and there were a multitude of good aspects to carrying this knife. We'll get to some cons, and I think some of the cons include, I actually find, like when I first look at a knife, if, like say there's a Spyderco and they have a big round hole, at first glance, I'm like, oh, that looks too big. It makes the knife too wide and like flat, pancakey. And I like the visuals of a cutout that's really slim. But I have to say, in actual use, it's a little bit more difficult to get your thumb and your middle finger into there to launch the thing out. And you can do it with practice, it would be fine. But I actually found that there were some situations where I'm trying to open it one-handed where it was a little bit difficult. I was doing a lot of laundry and this dry crack developed on my thumb, so I couldn't use the front flipper. And I think honestly, the front flipper is like the selling point on this. It's the easiest way to open it. So I was trying to just kind of monkey it out, and I was trying to flick it with my thumb, which you can do. There you go, case in point. Or with my middle finger, and it's possible, but you kind of have to think about it. Anyway, I didn't find the alternate deployment methods to be as intuitive as I thought they would be on the Kizer Genie, and that did detract just a little bit from my enjoyment of it. Love this Richlite handle. Richlite handle material is amazing. It just looks classy. It feels clean. It's really, really, really nice. The handle on this, 10 out of 10. Really cool shaping, really beautiful handle material. The one sort of detractor on these Kizers that I keep carrying is that I have a hard time getting this 154 cm steel really, really crisp. And I have a hard time keeping it from sort of wanting to chip out on a dual grit edge. I think that's probably because 154 cm has some really large carbides scattered through. But I definitely thought I liked 154 cm steel in the past. In the past, it's like, oh, VG10 is second best and 154 cm is better. But I find myself sort of flipping these days where I enjoy the sharpening experience on VG10 enough that I don't mind if it doesn't hold an edge forever. And I find with 154 cm, at least this 154 cm that Kizer is running, that I often can't get it to quite that crisp edge that I want and then get it to last. So I really like, to be honest, I really like a lot of Kizer's design work. I really like Azo, I really like Gauge, and I really like a lot of what they are doing with the rugged simplicity and sort of your blackout hardware. I think that Kizer makes a really beautiful knife, and I sort of gravitate toward them over your sort of Civivi and QSP, CJRB, the Vosteed, whatever, your other budget knife companies that are up and coming right now, I often will sort of gravitate toward Kizer because of the fit and finish, the tastefulness, and the rugged sort of simplicity of a lot of their designs. But I have to say, I'm sort of swinging and steering away from them because in the price range that I want a Kizer, a lot of it's this 154 cm, and it's not bad steel. Like, you can get it sharp, but I'm just a sharpener and I enjoy like ultimate sharpness. And I don't find that 154 cm, at least the way it's heat treated in these Kizers I've been carrying the last few weeks, is really an optimal steel to like take to that full ultimate edge. Fortunately, my favorite model of all of these Kizers is the Gemini, and that's in N690, and their N690 has sharpened great. I love the fine edge that it comes to. And so that's the drawback on the Kizer Genie. Overall, it's a beautiful knife. Every time I would pull it out, I'd be like, this is so beautiful. I wish it was sharper. But that's sort of the life of a sharpening snob. That brings us to the GiantMouse Ace Reo. Also a beautiful knife, sort of the opposite. This one's really angular. You've got a lot of like swept lines and a lot of symmetry here on the GiantMouse Ace Reo. I'm sorry, this blade is totally dirty. I didn't clean it. Obviously, I've been really using it. Now, this one I did a bunch of food prep with. I went outdoors and cut some stuff up with. And I'll say, I was really pleased with the shaping of this, the compactness. I like the deployment better. They've given you a little bit more space than on the Genie. The Genie, it's just a little tight to get your middle finger in there. I don't know if you can see, it's a little tight. They've given you just a bit more space on the GiantMouse, and I had no problem at any point deploying this with thumb or middle finger. And I think that's a new, except that problem that just happened there. I think that's a new sort of revelation for me, is that this part being rounded actually matters for the deployment. I like the blade shape. The drawbacks, I'd say I like a wire clip a little bit less than like your sort of deep carry cutout clip here. I like the clip on the Kizer Genie a little bit better. That's not a big deal, but it is a thing. However, I like these blocky backspacers that Vox and Anso do better than a pair of standoffs personally. I think it looks more tasteful and nice. However, I will say that although the micarta is really grippy on this and the 3D machining is like beautiful, I'm not the biggest fan of how denim micarta kind of soaks up dirt and then looks like a dirty pair of jeans. I know that that's like, duh, Gabe, what did you think you were buying? Other than a pair of jeans to get dirty. But I found that this started out really whitish blue and now it's really brownish blue. And I'm not the biggest fan of the discoloration that this is prone to. By comparison, the Richlite stays a lot cleaner looking. The MagnaCut in the GiantMouse Ace Reo performed fine. I think I had a little bit better enjoyment of the Hogue Deca, and I think that's because the initial edge on it was a little bit thinner, but MagnaCut generally takes a dual grit edge pretty well. It takes a fine edge really well, and I don't have any complaints about the MagnaCut on this. On this one, I was washing it off and shaking out the water, and I dinged it against the side. So I took this back to the stones and resharpened it and took it to a fine edge. It initially was a dual grit edge. I felt fine about that because the edge sort of failed a bit early on this one and I wasn't enjoying it. And so I took it to Spyderco Ultra Fine and sort of crisped it up. And so both of these got a little bit of a resharpen just to see if I could pull some better performance out of the steel. Overall, the MagnaCut was definitely a better performer. Although I do have to say, if I was to carry this on the daily, I would probably sort of make some reliefs here and reprofile this to like a 12-degree edge and then micro bevel it, because with the 0.14 thick blade, and the grind is nice, but it doesn't get super thin. This one does cut a little more chunky, like it feels a little bit thicker. And if I'm gonna carry something that sort of looks kind of Spyderco inspired, like I expect it to slice. And that was a little bit of a detractor from this GiantMouse knife. It looks slicey, but it is a little bit thicker. I think if I do keep it, I'll just do a hefty reprofile on that edge to sort of remove some of that pressure of going through and cutting materials. So when it comes to a winner, I can put the bracket of what's happened so far up after this, but I am going to declare the GiantMouse Ace Reo the overall winner, mainly because of my enjoyment of MagnaCut and the keen edge characteristics. These are both wonderful designs. I would love to see Kizer come out with the Genie in a different kind of steel. I would totally buy one, but as for me, as for now, I'm gonna declare this is the winner.
Okay, watching our initial best readings for the first time, sped up 4 times on the GiantMouse. We had an initial best of 201. Not the best, but some of these dual grit edges register up a little bit higher. On the Genie, 297.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want to see the last episode where the Kizer Begleiter took on the Civivi Damascus Imperium, I'll put a link on screen now. For the rest of you, I'll say peace out from the home slice. Bye.